Hi, I'm Joe Flowers for Equipped to Endure. Adam is out for a little while and he asked me to do some supplemental videos for you guys. So today we're going to be doing batoning 102 to show you some nuances to help you expend a little bit less energy. Before we start batoning with knives, I'm going to show you some examples of different cuts you can do. You can see I've been marking here a lot. This is a radial cut starting from the middle all the way outward. Even one split straight in half, the whole log split in half would be an example of a radial cut. So starting from the middle and then coming completely outward. That's not the only one though. You can start along these concentric rings here and do a tangential cut. So this line that I have right here along this concentric ring, I'm aiming for the top of that arc. Okay, an example of a tangential cut. This one right here, not just splitting straight down the middle, but along this surface right here. That's a tangential cut, going along that line and breaking along the grain. Now, when you do that correctly, man, that's a 90-degree angle, that's pretty cool. When you do that correctly with a good tool like a splitting axe, cool things happen, and we'll show you here in a second. Alright, first break on this particular piece of wood with the splitting axe, going to be on that tangential side. Now, hopefully we can do that with the camera rolling. I want you to get there. Good. That's what happens when you split along the tangential side. Alright, let's try one from the radial, from the middle, straight down. So, through here more or less. That one went straight through the middle. Alright, so we got this tangential split right here. You can see the concentric rings right there, and I cut along that grain, and that shot off because it went along the grain, and then I went straight through the middle. You can see the center portion of the tree right here, and that of course also went along the grain and split it as well. Let's see how that applies to batoning. One of the things commonly seen is you'll get into a campsite with a bunch of knife users, and the first thing they do to make firewood is they take their knife and they get one piece of wood and they just start wailing into it with another piece of wood, not paying attention to how old the wood is or which way it's bending, if there's knots in it or anything like that. And then they break their knife and they're like, oh my gosh, my knife failed this test. It's a horrible knife to take out in the woods. Well, knives weren't really designed to be batoned. So we're going to show you a few different things here to give you a little bit less abuse on your knife. Since you like your knife, you bought them, you paid good money after watching Adam's reviews. Alright, so for this sake, we got a bunch of pieces of wood that have been sawed all nicely with the bow saw. You may not have a bow saw with you in the woods, that's a whole nother story. This is just to show you the nuances of batoning. Alright, so here's a lesson. All knives aren't created equal. Some are more akin to batoning than others. When you have something as thin as a probably less than 3/32 knife, you probably don't want to start just banging that into a piece of wood. But it'll work great for carving. This full tang knife wasn't up to the task of splitting because it's way too thin. I'd rather carve with it than split with it. So we're going to get a knife that I'd rather split wood with than carve. It's substantially thicker and more of an outdoor knife, a bit sturdier. Alright, now you've seen some of the thought process behind using an axe. So here we got a incredibly hard piece of wood. We'll start to try and figure out something that the knife can handle. This is a short stubby top XS Alpha. As you can see, I'm probably not going to go straight through the middle. There is one small crack right there. I could try and crack along that axis and see if I can get it to work a little bit better, or to open up. There, now that crack is opening up just a little bit. I probably won't be able to get through this right away. Also, watch the point. A lot of people get hurt while doing this. How they take the knife out of the log. Force a lot more into there. Okay. You can see I'm not wailing like crazy. If you can hear it, you'll see a bit of splitting, and you'll hear it continue splitting all the way through. I'm not going crazy trying to wail this thing. Right, I know it's going to be in there hard,
There, now I don't have to pry like crazy. As a matter of fact, I could continue going and split the whole thing in half, like this. Cool. That was just one of the random pieces I used along the side.
Alright, so this next piece of wood is black locust, known for its hard properties and rot resistance, used in fence posts, etc. This is an old piece. You can see the cracks along here that I'm going to try and pay attention to, and then how there's none not really here except for these two. I'm going to get a different knife this time, just for argument's sake. Now I'm going to have a K-bar MK1, which is a pretty cool knife. I like it. Anyway, here are fracture points. It's a pretty spread out band here, so I think I might have some success. Now I'm going to give it just a little push and try and get my angulature, that's a word, the angle of this, me pressing down while I hit like that to carry the weight through the piece of wood. Alright, so there's a dry piece of wood. Alright, see that? See that crack there? I'm going to move it over here. Now we should get something interesting. Oh, sweet. Quick tips for splitting wood. 1, have a solid surface to break upon. It could be a rock, a piece of wood, the side of a tree or something. But when you're trying to split a piece of wood, going into the ground, it's putting all that energy into the ground rather than into your cut. 2, keep your knife as vertical as possible. Don't let it go this way or this way. Try and use your angles to get there. 3, look at the wood. If there's some twist in the grain, kind of like this one, be aware, because that'll screw up your knife, or bend it, or it could really hurt it, unless it's really thick. You don't have to give your knife all the abuse in the world. Do it smart. Alright, if this is at a point to where I don't think this knife could handle it anymore, I'd stop carefully, because this happens so much. You get cut when splitting like this so much, because a lot of people don't pay attention. Make yourself a wooden wedge out of hardwood of some sort and bust it apart using that. Now that you have the tools to split a piece of wood with the least amount of abuse on your knife and the least amount of energy expended on your part, you can now baton a little bit smarter. Have some fun with it. The longer the blade, a little bit easier it is. I'm Joe Flowers for Equipped to Endure, and if you're not always prepared, you're never prepared.